All right, waiting for a couple more people to come in. We're having just a little bit of technical difficulty, as we commented earlier. Trying to work that out. We didn't want to lose our window of opportunity to go live with StreamYard and everything. So, if you'll just give us a quick second while we work this out, we'll be right back. Again, we're having just a little bit of a technical difficulty. We're going to work on that and be right back. So, Moose in the background, go ahead and throw up that graphic, and I'll remove myself from screen, okay?
Well, there's a new voice talking all across Dixieland. It's a GCB, the Moose, and the Candy Man. Like a freight train rolling, bringing truth bombs down the line. Promoting the Southland 1 week at a time. Promoting the Southland 1 week at a time. SCV chat starts now.
Okay, everybody. Sorry about that. A little bit of technical difficulties, but it wouldn't be a season episode with SCV Chat if we didn't have some type of difficulty going on. Before we get started, as usual, the views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are not necessarily those of the SCV, its GEC, nor any division, brigades, camps, or other subsidiaries, strictly those of us who are expressing them. Happy Robert E. Lee Day to everyone. Hope everybody is doing good. Moose is in the Moose Mobile fighting, well, I don't know if he's
Engines.
fighting crimes, but he's moosing around. And we have a very distinguished looking young gentleman in our bottom portion of our screen, Commander in Chief Jason Boshears. Hello, CIC. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and the holdup was on my end. I don't know if some of y'all know this or not, but I had a laptop blow up on me, and I've got new equipment. And sometimes some of that stuff isn't working just right. I ran into this problem one day last week, and I don't have all the bugs worked out. So I'm back to using my phone and not my laptop. So there you go.
Well, we'll get it worked out. We'll see. Well,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know about Moose, but I'll see you in March, and we can get something. We can troubleshoot it up there.
I'll
Oh
see
yeah.
So,
the commander this weekend, actually.
well, la di da.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Well,
I'll be down there at Beauvoir.
well, I will be in South Haven, speaking at their Lee Jackson's. So we'll literally be on the other end of the states from each other.
Okay. Well, hey, safe travels.
Y'all too.
Safe travels.
Which it's ironic. I'm practically going up to Tennessee, and you're going as far south in Mississippi as you can go. So
Yeah, that happens that way sometimes.
maybe we can meet in the middle for lunch on Sunday.
I'm good with that. We'll work something out. We'll meet somewhere.
But yeah. Anyway, so I hope everybody's having a good evening this evening. I hope everybody is enjoying their Robert E. Lee Day. See a lot of folks and friends in the chat that we appreciating some new faces. So if you're just now seeing this, we do this show every Monday at
7 p.m. Confederate Standard Time.
Thank you, Moose, for having my back there while
got
I'm drinking out of my.
That I'm not gonna make that. It's too early in the season. You
And
know,
what happened to y'all's coach?
Huh?
Yeah. So, anyway,
Play nice. Play nice.
we're playing nice as we can.
Well,
Uh,
yes, I believe you. I honestly believe you. Yes.
Yeah,
I've seen
well,
y'all two together. This is nice.
Exactly. I had brunch with a colleague of mine today. Being off from work, and I was explaining the show and the premise behind it and everything. And I began explaining who Moose was, and I said he's like the little brother I never had. And she just like, that's not so mean. You need to be nice to that kid. He looks up to you. Blah 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 blah. No, I'm not going to be nice to him.
look up to you is a stretch.
So, anyway.
Hey, I look up to everybody. And you can take that any way you want to, physically or whatever you want to say. I didn't mean to make you choke there, Connor.
You nearly
Well,
killed.
that's a little bit of my off-screen bad habit kicking in.
Okay.
Looks like we had somebody else trying to join in. We don't have his picture up yet, but when we do, we will bring him on.
Okay.
But back to everybody looking up to somebody. We all look up to Forrest Dawson,
don't we?
Yeah. Quite.
Yeah. I believe I need a running start and a trampoline just to be able to sock him in the nose.
And my brother-in-law, who's a member of this organization, can bench press Rhode Island.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I told him that.
I know.
True.
He's still trying to pop on. So as soon as we get a picture of him, he's trying to figure it out.
Okay.
Anyway, before we get started, it looked like you were in Florida this past weekend, CIC.
Well, I've been in Florida. I've been in Florida a couple of times. First time I went down, I went and visited with the J.J. Dickinson camp down around Cocoa Beach. And Roy Hudson and that group, they had a Lee Jackson. It was not this past Saturday, but Saturday before. They had a full room. It was a great Lee Jackson, a fantastic Lee Jackson. The room was full. The food was great. It was just a great time to socialize with everybody and be with all those guys down there. And then I went to, on Tuesday night, I was in Foley at the Fort Blakely camp down there. Tommy Rhodes, who so many of y'all know, Tommy Rhodes and them had their Lee Jackson. And if you ever been to the Gift Horse restaurant, the food was fantastic, and it was a huge room, and it was full. And then this past, actually last night, about this time last night, I was speaking at the Camp 1209, the Kirby Smith camp down in Jacksonville. And I tell you, 1209 knows what they're doing. They know how to put something on. They're extremely well organized. And with 1209, you get the whole 9 yards. I mean, they give you everything. Hard working camp. all the things they take care of. They are very much a boots on the ground kind of camp that just works from the ground up and getting everything done. And they answer the $1 million question, which is, what do we do next? They tackle that head on. They do a fantastic job with that. They are working in one cemetery down there. They have the Confederate area that they take care of, and it has a grandstand from when they had the 1914 UCV reunion there, and they take care of that grandstand. They keep it painted and well taken care of. The Confederate section, I want to go back and I want to visit it in the spring and summer just to see how everything is bloomed out. They've got flowers all over the place. Grass is growing. It's a beautiful spot. And then they take care of Camp Mooney, which they have just started taking care of. They're doing a tremendous job with that. And then they have their Confederate Park. That it's a section down there by the interstate. They've got a General Lee statue. They've got flags up. They got a pavilion, a grill, a monument. They had a couple of years ago, they placed a monument at Winstead Hill in Franklin, and they had a copy of that made, and they have that on their property as well. So they're taking care of a lot of things. With 1209, you get the whole 9 yards. So been on the road a lot. We'll be in Beauvoir this weekend. I'm going to be in North Carolina and a couple of places here in Tennessee. So I'm going to be traveling quite a bit. It's a lot of Lee Jackson going on.
Yeah, and it is the wonderful time of the year with Lee Jackson. Speaking of Lee Jacksons, I was in this man's camps, Lee Jackson, this past Saturday. I'm going to bring on past Commander-in-Chief Larry McClooney, who was doing some wardrobe changes in the back of behind the scenes, trying to figure out which chapeau he wanted to wear this evening.
Okay.
Past Commander-in-Chief, good to see you.
What do you say there, Brother McClooney?
Oh, good seeing y'all. Good seeing y'all. Hey, I just thought I'd pop in and kind of let everybody know that I may be gone, but I'm not forgotten.
Well, Larry and I even talked today. We've talked a few times about everything going on. So that's the thing about this organization. We are a real brotherhood.
Amen.
And we still talk. I talk to everybody that I can. Most of the time I end up talking my phone all the way down to nothing nearly. In fact, it's on charge now where I've been on it today. It is just a real brotherhood, and it's nice to be able to talk to Larry. We spent better than 2 years talking to each other just about every day. And it seems really odd for me not to, if I go a week and don't talk to him, I think something's wrong. And, and that's the thing about us being in a brotherhood. Larry was a great commander-in-chief. He was easy to talk to, great to work with. And I know I'm saying all this with him on here, but he does feel like a brother to me. I talked to him so much over the years. I feel a real acquaintance with him. And that's the reason why I really love and appreciate this organization. The heart pouring that came at the loss of my father. The people sent flowers. The funeral was gorgeous, and it was all these SCV camps and divisions had sent flowers and gifts, and just know that heart, they were out there, and so many people called and sent text. It really made me appreciate this organization. That's something like that makes me fall in love with this organization even more, and makes me want to do more because how everybody has reached out. So, and thank everybody for everything.
Well, and backing up what you said, having gone through it myself as division commander, and I know commander-in-chief with him when he was commander-in-chief. The outpouring of love that we have is really great. Well, looks like Moose is finally back home. I want to add him back on stream. And then y'all had a little housekeeping stuff y'all wanted to do. We're going after I add him on here, we're gonna let y'all take over and talk about whatever y'all need to talk about before we get into tonight's topic. Okay?
Okay. I have to say that I don't really know what tonight's topic is, other than it's probably about Robert E. Lee, since today is Robert E. Lee Day.
It
As
is.
it should be about Robert E. Lee. And I contacted Connor, and I believe I contacted you on Saturday night about coming on.
Sure.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
One of those
something
days
like
that
that.
end in Y.
Yeah, about coming on, because there's a few things we need to talk about and let everybody be aware of. And if you want me to get into those, I will get into them.
The floor is yours.
Commander,
Okay.
before you do that,
Yes, sir.
and I say something about our Saturday night, I think I discussed it with you over the phone.
Yes, sir. Let her rip.
This past October of our GEC meeting, there was a lot of promises made, a lot of money that was being pledged and so forth to the Forest Pedestal Plaza. And I made a promise, even though our camp is a small camp of about 45 people, I said by our Lee and Jackson banquet on January the 4th, we pledged $1,000. And that came to a close this past Saturday, and we was about $80 short of our goal. And I said, real quick, like I says, close the doors to the meeting hall, and I'm just going to be like a Baptist preacher. We're going to pass the hat around, and we're going to meet our goal before we leave. So when everything was said and done, we raised over $1,085. So we have met our goal, and I am proud to say that check will be presented to you, sir.
And that is wonderful of y'all to do that. And yes, you did pledge it. And yes, you and your camp kept your word. And I want to thank y'all for that. And that is going to put back the Forest Pavilion. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And one more thing I'd like to add to that, Commander. If our small camp here on the Mississippi Delta can raise $1,000 in just a couple of months, in a couple of weeks, here, the Brigadier General Humphreys Camp 1625 challenges every camp in this organization to do the same.
There you go.
We're not from money, but we gave from the heart. And we kept our promise. And we ask everybody in this organization, look, go back to my slogan when I was Commander-in-Chief. If not us, who? If not now, when? When are y'all going to stand up and let's make sure that this plaza is restored, because nobody else is going to do it. We've got things we got to do. And I know commanders and things you're going to share with everybody and so forth. But, hey, like I said, if our small camp can raise $1,000 like that, I'm sure everybody else can do the same. I mean, even if you can't give $1,000 like we did, give. We have things that need to be taken care of. And right now, what's on the priority list is, of course, the plaza, the depth on the museum, which will always be there. And then on top of that, acquisitions. And I will leave it at that with you, Commander, because I know there's a few things that you want to share with everybody. But I just wanted to thank you, Commander, for what you've done up to this point, and looking for more great things to happen. Because if you've not been to Elm Springs, y'all, Elm Springs, its physical appearance is changing, all because of our commander, as things are happening there. Benches are coming out, bricks are fixing to start coming out, and so forth and so on. The property is changing faster than we could ever think. And on top of that, events are starting to be locked in concrete as annual events every year that's taking place. Is going to draw in income for Elm Springs in this organization. And my hat's off to you, Commander, and I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for that. It's a whole lot of people working on a whole lot of different things. It's not just me. It is, you ask people to do stuff and people step up and do it. One of the things that you did that was very, very good was putting Jimmy Hill in charge of the timeline for the museum. And if you haven't been within the last 6 months, if you come in, you're going to see all the way around the museum, except for a spot or two. The timeline is laid out for everybody. We have stuff that's still coming in. We still have stuff still being donated. And the museum is going to continue to change for quite some time. We're going to be making a request to a group to get some more cabinets, the right kind of cabinets that we need, so we can put some more of these things on display. There's more of these artifacts on display. And you putting Jimmy Hill in charge of that. Jimmy Hill's one of the guys that just gets things done. He's a great organizer, and the people that are so good at organizing, there's some people that, they're workers, and there's some people that are great at organization. All of us have our strong points and all of us have our weak points. And it's one of the things I'm lacking in is, trying to keep everything going, because as y'all know, everything's up in the air right now. We've got a whole lot of things that we're working on. And I saw something pop up from the Kennedys. I didn't see what it was. Working off my phone, I didn't see it. But
he promised $1,000. He promised $1,000 from his camp.
There you go. And I'll just tie off that. If the camps, the challenge has been issued for each camp to give something. And if each camp can give something, and there's different things for the camps to give too. See, that's the great thing about our organization is we aren't cubby-holed into one thing. You can contribute how you wish to contribute. If you wish to do the bricks and pavers, then you can do those. If you wish to contribute to the museum, you can do that. You can contribute to the house. And then if anybody was on Facebook today or you saw the post coming out from HQ, we have an opportunity here. Van Dorn's sword. I don't know if you can pull that up, any of that stuff to be pulled up from it. But Earl Van Dorn's sword has been offered us, and it's fully documented, full prominence to it. We know the where it's been its whole time, and right now it's been offered to us, and the guy's going to hold it until mid-March, so we have 2 months. What he is asking, if people wish to contribute to this, is say we don't have an acquisitions fund. And that is one of the things that has hurt us the most as far as getting things. And that is because, well, we focused on paying the debt. And the debt does need to be taken care of. It is a priority. In fact, it is the priority. But we can't let other things slide because we are doing other things slide because we're focusing on the museum. There's other things that need to happen. Earl Van Dorn's sword, $30,000. And if we can get the $30,000 raised, we don't have an acquisitions fund. We don't have any kind of funding like this in the budget. If you've been to the National Reunion, you know what the budget is. There's nothing like this in there. So any of the acquisitions that we're going to get, we're going to start an acquisitions fund. And if people want to contribute to that, for us to buy artifacts, then contribute to that. That's one of the things Adam and I have talked about. I know Commander McClooney and I talked about it because it's one of those things that has hurt us because a few things have come up. Most of the things that have come up were, well, $75,000 and up, and good Confederate artifacts, correct artifacts, such as flags and things like that. They're going to cost money. You can get some of this stuff if it's donated or whatever. But if we're going to buy some of these artifacts, we're going to have an acquisitions fund. And if anybody would like to contribute to the Earl Van Dorn, you can. There should be a link off Facebook, and Moose or Connor and them want to put that link in the chat here for people to be able to donate strictly to get Earl Van Dorn's sword. I did not know if he pulled something up.
Yeah, we just sorry about that. I'm copying our mailing address really quickly
Okay.
and putting it out there. So Adam, when he posted this earlier, wants everybody to mail in checks to Sons of Confederate Veterans, PO Box 59, Columbia, Tennessee. Zip code is 38402. I've sent the pictures over to Moose. Put it to Museum Acquisitions.
Yeah.
That is Museum Acquisitions. I'll go through and edit it really quickly and repost that in there. Yeah, Museum Acquisitions. But you can.
While you doing that, Connor, I just wanted to say thank y'all for letting me come in for just a few seconds and so forth to promote that challenge across the Confederation. Commander, keep up the good works. You know, you got a lot of people that you can lean on if you need them.
Yep.
You know, I'm always thinking about you and praying for you, brother. Guys, great job y'all been doing so far with the chat. Just keep up the good work and run with it, man. Just run with it. Look,
Yep.
guys, I've got to get ready for school and stuff like that for tomorrow. I miss y'all. And look, everybody out there, you can't think of a better group of men as these three right here. They are great brothers. Love y'all, all of you. Y'all take
Love you too. I'll see you.
Appreciate you, Commander.
All right.
And thank you for coming on and issuing that challenge. Actually, people respond to a challenge, and I thank you for doing that.
Thank you, brother. Y'all take care.
Yep, thank you. And you know, anybody that's wanting to contribute to these acquisitions, Earl Van Dorn's what we're looking at now. There's going to be others. You know, I'm going to have a committee, put a committee together to look at these artifacts and make a full determination. Yes, that's his sword. There's even a picture of it, picture of him holding that sword. There he is. And it's if somebody wants to contribute to that, that is a way for you to contribute. And like I said, and like Commander McClooney said, we know that we're asking people, keep asking people to do this, but this is our museum. This is y'all's museum. You know, how great it is going to depend on how much work we put into it. And to get these good artifacts as they come up, the fear that I have with a lot of these artifacts is somebody gets them and they put them in a private collection and they're passed down from generation to generation and they never see the light of day. That's where a lot of these things are. That's where a lot of them are. So we have to, when something becomes available, it's something that we're going to have to look at doing. And this Van Dorn sword popping up okay, let's go ahead and get this started now. We have spent a lot of time focusing on the debt of the museum and getting us in good operating speed. And that's what we've worked on. But these things like this come up. And you have an opportunity, if it's what you like, for you to be able to contribute to that. And like I said, that's a great thing about this organization. There's ways for you to give. You can give on the local level by supporting your camp if they have events and they have functions, because fundraising has to happen at the camp level, as you just went through with what past Commander and Chief McClooney just said, that there's, you know, you have to raise funds at the local level, and anything that you're willing to, that, you know, your camp is willing to contribute to whatever's going on at national is greatly appreciated, so we can keep this organization growing, which is the point of it, is to keep the organization growing and make our museum what it should be, because, well, we're going to be the only museum in the world like this, to where you can come and you will get the true and complete story of the Southland. We're going to put the bad stuff out there. We're going to put the good stuff out there, and we're going to be able to honor all of our ancestors and all of our heroes. And that's the point of the museum, and also being able to use the museum as an educational arm. That is, to me, that's one of the key pieces, is people can come there, and with everything that has been put on the wall, people can spend hours in there just reading everything that's on the walls, and they get a full view of what our ancestors went through from 1607 until right now. Yes, we do focus quite a bit on 1860 through 1865, but American history is Southern history, and Southern history is everything that we're dealing with from 1607 up until right now. And this is an opportunity. If people want to do it, there's plenty of ways for you to give. Like I said, if you want to deal with the museum debt, you can still make contributions to that. And then if you want to, I'll get into the Forest Plaza, if you'd like for me to say a few words about that. As you know, at the GEC meeting in October, the General Executive Council, working with the descendants of Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest, voted to put the plaza back exactly like it was, as it was intended to by Charles Henry Niehaus and Nathan Bedford Forrest's son. Charles Henry Niehaus was the one that designed the entire plaza. The entire plaza is 50 feet deep and 75 feet wide. And he was the one that designed the equestrian statue, King Philip with Forrest sitting on top. To put that whole thing back, the estimate is about $150,000. And that is not anything that's in the budget. Because we were good stewards of the money from when we had the reinterment, we had money left over from it. And we've already had fundraising coming in, and we're already up to $76,000 of the $150,000 needed for that. And as Commander McClooney just said, with their $1,000 donation, we've gotten even more done. So that is, we can't build the plaza until the money is raised. People are asking, well, when are you going to start? When are you going to get going? Well, we realize if it's one of those things, the longer we go, the more expensive it's going to get. But we're not going to break ground and start putting all of this together until we already have the money. We're not going to incur any kind of debt to do any of this. If it's 5 years before the money's raised, then it's 5 years. If people want to see it up in the spring of next year, then people are going to have to reach down deep and do it and make these donations. You've heard me talk about nothing but donating. And I tell you, I feel horrible about it. But that is where we are with this. You can contribute to the museum, and paying off its debt. You can contribute to the artifacts that are being raised. We're always having to do the work on the house. Elm Springs it's nearly 200 years old now. It was started in 1835 and finished in 1837. And on a 200-year-old house, you're always having to do something there. I noticed we're going to have to do some work on a couple of the windows where the wood's starting to rot around the windows. So we're going to have to work on that. So there's always going to be things that we need to do there. Then I'd like to, I'm going to jump over to the Stephen D. Lee real quick. The Stephen D. Lee is going to be coming up, I believe, February 24th or the 26th. I don't remember that off the top of my head. I think it's the last weekend in February. And it's going to be held down in Tampa, Florida. And, if you're planning on coming to that, please go ahead and register. Go ahead and book your rooms. You have about a week left before you can get the rate of the rooms that have been already blocked off. This is a go event. We're going to do it. If you're wanting to come to it, you want to support it, now's your time to contribute and come to a Stephen D. Lee. I know the Kennedy twins are going to be there. I know that they're going to be speaking. I also know that they have books for sale. And I saw today that Ron Kennedy put a post out there on Facebook, was where I saw it, that they're going to be doing some special gift for I think is it the first 60 people or something like that they're going to be getting a book. So check on that. I don't let the Kennedy twins chime in on what they're going to do with that, and let them say. All right, February 24th, 25th. Yep. Friday, Saturday, and I always throw Sunday in there for some reason. Everybody stays around to Sunday morning anyway, generally. So, yes, first 60 people. And the name of the book slips my mind. Do you mind putting that out there, Mr. Kennedy? The name of the book and what y'all are planning on doing. But I wanted to take time to go ahead and push to Stephen D. Lee. If you want to come and you want to hear something about what's going on, it's about everything we're going through here in modern times, from when it first started to where we are now. And you're going to have a panel that's going to have, you're going to have your speakers, and then there's going to be a panel in which you'll be able to ask all these people who have been involved in so many of these. And yes, that's the name of the book. There's going to be the panels. You'll be able to ask the people on the panels questions on what they've gone through and what they have seen when they have had to deal with monument desecration and monument removal. So that is also going to be a very good thing. The last thing I would like to talk about is on Thursday night, the General Executive Council and Camp 1209 ended up getting a preview of this last night when I was talking to them. The General Executive Council voted to get involved in the lawsuit in Arlington. National, after talking to so many members on the General Executive Council, we felt like this was something that National needed to be involved in and try to help get this thing along, get it spearhead, get it stopped, figure out what we can do with that. We realize that this is going to be a long uphill battle, but it's a fight that has to be made. A lot of people feel that when this happens and they take down the monument there in Arlington, that and what do you do with the 426 Confederates that are buried there? And then you start to renaming the bases. There's actually two separate deals here. One is taking down the monument, and another is to deal with the base naming. But National has decided to get involved in this. Right now, Heritage Operations, the Heritage Defense Fund, they have about $92,000 in it. We're going to need people to contribute to that. If you feel like this is a fight that is worth making, then this is something else for you to be able to contribute to. But National felt like it needed to be involved after talking with several other men. When this first come up, I was already talking to some of the lawyers about how's the best way to proceed. And after talking with them for a while and presenting it to National, felt like it was absolutely the best thing for National to do. So National is spearheading this event, this process. If you want to contribute to that, if you believe this is a fight that you want, then this is something else for you to contribute to. If you pull up the scv.org website, you'll notice that there is a battle flag part of the way down on the right, and it says donate. You can click on that, and it'll bring up everything that we are currently raising money for, except for this acquisitions budget. That is something that we're going to get put together, and we're going to get on this website. But if you'll get to that and go to the Heritage Defense, and this is a way for you to contribute if it's a fight that you want to make. Unfortunately, on my phone, I'm not able to read what Charles LeRae has put out there. If one of y'all want to read it out.
Yeah, Charles says, press on. Arlington's Confederate/Reconciliation Monument deserves the attention of the SCV and is us against the U.S. government. I would dare say federal government. This is and will be the most important legal fight to defend a Confederate memorial and will bring national attention. And indeed it is, if you don't mind me jumping in really quickly,
Go
Commander.
ahead.
The you know, as the son of a past historian in chief, it hasn't been since really, I would say 2005 and our late unpleasantness that the national organization has been involved directly in a lawsuit where it wasn't just a camp taking it on, like the Nathan Bedford Forrest statue and stuff. That was done by the local camp in Memphis. This is a huge precedent. You know, this is something that we haven't seen in a while. And on this magnitude, dealing with defending of our heritage, it's a great step forward. All the time, you know, we're hearing from membership about, I wish National would step in and do stuff. I wish National would step in and do stuff. And we've said, because I've said it along with Jason, that, you know, most of the stuff comes on the local level. This is a national issue. This is a national level issue. And I'm proud to see our GEC, you know, taking the bull by the horns and going after these people and protecting our heritage. A victory in this fight is so important to us. It'll set precedent for every legal battle, every legal monument battle, and across the next 50 states or for the next 100 years. So the only way that we can properly win this is just like the Commander-in-Chief said, and if y'all could read the reading there on the Heritage Operations Defense Donate button, when you click on Defense, it gives a brief explanation. And just like the Kennedys have been saying in the chat, that right now these dollars are our bullets. You know, our money, being spent for this defense is our infantry, our cavalry, and things like that. It takes money to win lawsuits, and I know we've been talking about donations all night, and it always feels like the SCV is always asking for donations, but
Yeah.
you know, this is something that is huge, that will benefit our entire organization. Not only will we when we win this, I'm going to say we're going to win it, because God is on our side, and all things work together for good for those that love the Lord and are called to His purpose.
Amen.
When we win this, not only will we have that precedent, but we will also be in the national starlight. And every time something happens with our heritage and we get our name, our free media name out there, like the SCV is doing this, we begin to get more members. And that's everything we've talked about on the shows: recruiting new members, getting them activated in our camps, getting them on our local level. So not only is it a heritage battle, it's a recruiting battle. It's something that we, as the Sons of Confederate Veterans, need to put our full faith and support behind with this. So that's all I had to say.
Yes, we're going to be getting into this, and I appreciate everything that you stated there. I'll go ahead and tell you, I feel guilty every time I come on here and I start talking to people about donating and raising money, and because I know how hard times are out there. I know I've been to the grocery store. I know what it cost. I fill up my truck. I know how much it cost. And to come on here and say, guys, can you dig a little deeper? Well, I feel the sting just like everybody else does. And I'll be honest with you, I feel guilty about it. Because one thing, we have the museum debt that we're working on. We have acquisitions that we need to make, and we have heritage fights that we have to take. Plus, we have to take care of all the responsibilities that we do have as an organization. But the thing is, if we don't do it, who is going to do it? If we don't step up and make these fights, nobody else is going to make these. They're just going to steamroll all over anything based willy-nilly on whatever they want to do. And he is right. Dollars are bullets at this point. So, you know, do we want to make this organization everything that our ancestors fought for? We all know what our guys went through. We all know what they went through at home. We all know what the South was like after the war and during Reconstruction. We know that there were men, our ancestors, that were released from prison camps all over the North and had to make their way back home. We know that when they got home, there was nothing there. We know they had to completely rebuild for nothing. I don't want their sacrifices to be made in vain. I don't think we should do that. I think our God-given responsibility is to honor our ancestors. You know, the Bible tells you to honor your father and your mother. And it tells you when you honor one, you honor all. Yes, I feel guilty about coming out and asking anybody for money. But the fact of the matter is, this is what we're going to have to do if we're going to make this organization what it is, what it should be, and if we're going to grow this organization. I've noticed for a number of years now, as so many others have, our numbers become stagnant. You know, we're kind of hung at that 30,000 number. And it took a tragedy that happened several years ago for us to get over the 30,000 range, and we got all the way up to 36,000 members. I remember going to a national reunion here and we had 36,000 members. Well, all of those 6,000 members have gone to the wayside. And we talk a whole lot about recruitment, and then we talk a whole lot about retention. And as we know, that's two completely different things. Recruitment is one thing, retention is another. It's the difference between getting a girlfriend and keeping a girlfriend. You know, you have to do something to get their attention. And then once you get their attention, you have to start paying attention to what your members want, what they like. And these are different opportunities for our members out there to provide and give and contribute in a manner in which they wish to do it. And people ask for stuff like this. Surprisingly or not, there's been a lot of people said that over the past couple of years, do we have any kind of funds to buy artifacts? Well, no, sir. As you heard from my conversation earlier, we don't, because we were focused on getting our ship back right and getting our money where it needed to be and pay off the debt that we need to pay. Well, when you're trying to pay off debt, you really don't want to spend any extra money. Well, at what point in time do you go and do other things? We have to grow the museum. If we let the museum grow stagnant, that's not going to do our organization any good. That's not honoring our ancestors the way that we should honor them. They gave, in many cases, they gave up everything. And I'm not asking people to give up everything. I'm just, cut out a Coke a week, cut out a pack of cigarettes a week, and contribute something. You don't feel like you got to give $1,000. You can go on here and do an automatic withdrawal on here to where they'll take out $5 a month if you wanted that done. And you're just continuing to give.
And that's what I was about to say with the PayPal link. I can't click on it. It'll change it. You won't be able to see the back screen. I'm dedicating myself starting on February 1st. That's when I get paid the first of the month. I'm going to be doing $80 a month for until this is over with. If every member of our organization did $80 a month, which is roughly $5 during a work week. So, that's $5 a day during a work week. And that's $960 per person per year. But if you multiply that $960 by the 30,000 members that we have in this organization, now I know some people like Harrison are poor college students can't afford it. That's $28 million. I think we can afford to have a pretty good lawsuit with $28 million.
Well, with 28, with that kind of money, that kind of money blows my mind. But that's the kind of stuff that happens when you compound. And when everybody gives and everybody gives a little bit that they can afford to give over a long period of time, it's what happens. The numbers grow into that. And the thing is, you can contribute it to what you want to contribute it to. Right now, if you just want to contribute to putting Forest back up, you could. And once Forest is up and you want to contribute to the acquisitions fund, you can do that. If you just wanted to have $20 a month come out to go straight to the museum to help pay the debt off, then thank you. Please, thank you. Thank you for what you're willing to do. No amount is too small. Don't feel like, well, I've got to give at least 1,000 before you get recognized. No, you won't. Just, do what your heart tells you. Follow your heart and follow your spirit. And if you want to honor your ancestors, if you want your children and your children's children to hear the true story of the Southland, well, this is the one place you will be able to come, and they will be able to come and hear the complete story of our Southland. And even though I feel guilty about it, well, it's something that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to do all of these things so we can get our organization to grow. Right now, in most cases, we are the best kept secret. And with us stepping onto a national stage to deal with this Arlington lawsuit, it's going to bring us under a bigger microscope. But it's also going to allow people who don't know about us to reach out to us. How much will this generate in interest and in members? I don't know. But what if we're able to change a few hearts and a few minds and get people to look at it, to see that we're not the beast and the animals that people want to portray us as, that
Right.
we are a heritage organization that simply wants to remember and honor our ancestors, plain and simple. And it's a shame that we have to go into these fights to do it. But folks, this is exactly where the world is now. If you don't believe that, watch CNN and Fox News and all this other stuff that comes across on social media, and you'll see that that's where the world is now. And we are an island that's all by ourselves, and we need more people to come on this island so we can inhabit our own island.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to be.
Really quickly, I've got two questions for you. One is from the chat. The other one's from me. Who's on the $5 bill?
A president that needlessly destroyed a nation and killed roughly 1 million people, either by disease or starvation or bullet.
Yeah. So in other words, a tyrant. Now there was a campaign that came out a couple of years ago about make the Yankees work for you.
Yes.
And again, even if you think about it, making the Lincoln work for you, making that $5 work for you, we can do that, and just donate $5 a day. Save it up, $5 a day. You got that. If every member did that, we would increase our funds for whatever fund that we have.
Sure.
All those that are on scv.org/PayPal-donations would be great. If you don't do PayPal, there's the mailing address. But just $5 a day, making Abraham Lincoln work to save our ancestors that he so tried so hard to kill. Let's do that and make our victory. Another thing really quickly while I'm trying to find this question. Go ahead. All right. Well, Sean's got it. Everybody who's watching, remember to share this episode so we can get our news out there to not only the members of the SCV, but to our other friends throughout the South that are fighting with us in the cause that may not be in the SCV, that may be friends of the SCV, maybe a member of your camp that's ever heard of SCV chat. Get it out there because this is breaking news that everybody needs to know about. And the more that we got pulling on the same rope together, the better off we are. And finally, and I imagine that you're already going to be sending something out on the Telegraph about this, but Sean Hill asked, can we have a statement from the GEC to pass on to our camp members?
Yes, and that is something that has already been first draft has already been worked through on that, and there will be a complete draft that'll go out on the Telegraph, it'll go out on social media, and push it around and let everybody see it. The GEC will get a copy of this, and I want their approval and their signature on it to see that we're all standing in unison as we fight this. And that is the one thing that we all need to do is you need to be aware of who your real enemy is. Nobody in the SCV is my enemy. We might not like each other. We might not get along on all things. We might not agree on everything, but you're not the enemy. I've seen the enemy. So many of us have seen the enemy, and nobody in this organization is an enemy. And at this point in time, we just need to rally together and fight as one unit. And I'm reaching out to all of the other organizations. I'm talking about the United Daughters of the Confederacy. I'm talking about the Order of Confederate Rose. I'm talking about the Sons of the American Revolution, the Daughters of the American Revolution, because the descendants of those men fought in our war. So we need them to stand with us as well. This needs to be a full force stoppage. This is 4th and goal from the 1, and we got to keep them out of the end zone. And what kind of defense are we going to put up? And when we stop their defense, what kind of offense are we going to have? And a lot of what I have talked about with the attorneys is offense, because I have heard the Kennedys talk about the Kennedy twins, talk a great deal about taking back the narrative. Well, how better can we take back the narrative than if we take it back on a national stage? How can we change hearts and minds by saying that there is somebody out there that is willing to go the full measure and go into this realizing, whatever happens, is going to be left up to people who are going to be making some decisions, and some lawyers and some judges. But the thing is, are we going to even fight the fight? Our ancestors didn't show up in every battle, but they did show up in battles. And when you're fighting in Gettysburg, you couldn't have been fighting in Gettysburg and Vicksburg at the same time. So we all have to step up and fight the fight that when it comes our way, and the fight is here. It has been here. And it's been, if you look back, well, if you really look back, you start to see how the United Confederate Veterans wrote some things near the end, and you'll see that this whole taking back, them writing their narrative, is them writing their narrative really started about the 1910s and 1920s. And we talk about taking back the narrative. Well, we need to write the true narrative. The thing about taking back the narrative is we need to have a place at the mic to be able to start talking about our narrative, which we don't have. And our narrative is simply the truth. Point blank, simple, the truth. That's our narrative. What is true? What is right? What is good in God's word? What is just good as how things should be? There's a big difference between the way things could be and the way things are. The difference between what could be and what should. There is a big difference in that. And we need to make it things the way they should be. And to me, that is the narrative. I can't read that. Y'all read it out.
Yeah, so this is from who I'm sure is Lieutenant Commander in Chief Kennedy, because I heard him say the same thing this past weekend. But what is it saying about the current government if reconciliation, the monument at Arlington was a reconciliation monument,
Yes.
is no longer desired? We need to let America know what is going on. And I
Yes.
agree with him 110%. Also, and I hope I'm not giving anything away with this, but a lot of people don't realize that the man who made that monument, which is a piece of art, was a Confederate veteran himself.
Moses Ezekiel.
Exactly, that's what I was going to give. That is his name. Served with the VMI cadets at the Battle of Newmarket, and was a Jewish soldier. So, if a piece of art is being taken away by the federal government that was made by a Jewish veteran, what does that say about those groups that are being targeted then? Because not only is that part of American Southern heritage, but it's also a part of Jewish heritage as well in the United States.
And you're right. It is. It's American history. This is all part of our story. And you had these gentlemen at the turn of the century, and there were, I think I read something, and I believe it was 5 different presidents that had something to do with this. And I know that one of them was the one that really pushed to have this happen. And, you know, we have I think it's 426 or 428 Confederates that are buried around in that circle. And there's some unknowns in there. But you have 4 people that are buried at the base of that. And Moses Ezekiel is one of those. He can, and it was such a beautiful, and it is beautiful. I've been to it. I've seen it. It's gorgeous. It is a work of art. At what point in time are we just going to say enough's enough? We've been saying that for a long time. Well, I think we're past the point of enough is enough. It comes a time that you have to stand and you have to fight. And like our ancestors did. And if this is a fight that you believe that we should be making, and it is going to cost money, all of us know what lawyers charge, and all of us know what it costs just to file papers, you know. So there comes a time that we have to do this. And I appreciate the members of the General Executive Council that were willing to stand up and make this fight. National is, we have been talking about this when this first started with renaming the bases, was when this conversation started. And now we are at this point that it is now time. You're not going to know about a lot of the plans coming up and exactly what we're going to be doing. Well, because you never give away your battle plan ahead of time. You know, we always heard how, since it's Robert E. Lee Day, I'm going to throw a little something in about Robert E. Lee. You know, the story is that, you know, Grant knew where Lee was going to be because there was a piece of paper in a trash can that somebody saw, and it was Lee's plans on how he was going to move his troops, because the Confederate Congress wanted to know everything that was going on. Jeff Davis and all of them wanted to know what was going on. And Lee submitted his plans, and there was a copy of it, and they got it. In fact, a few years later, when it come up, Lee actually made something to the statement. I couldn't figure out how they knew what I wanted to do, and now I know. They knew what he was going to do before he did it, because Grant never had a check or a checkmate in the entire time that they had fought against each other. And then all of a sudden, Lee would go to make a move, and he had a check and a checkmate against him. So, you know, you're not going to know the battle plan ahead of time. You're going to see it unfold. We gotta fight this fight, and we're going to be in it to win it. I know of no other way to say it.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing on it. We don't need to know, you know, the battle plan. We need to know our marching orders.
Yes.
We elect on GE for a reason. We put our trust in y'all to do what we feel is right, to better, for the betterment of our organization. And it's time for us, the foot soldiers, to do whatever we need to do to make this to make it happen. I mean, and while we're filling some time, I'm uploading a couple pictures.
Well, I've come on, and I wasn't planning on. I realized we're an hour and 3 minutes into it. I can see that, nearly an hour and 4. I know you probably wasn't expecting for me to take this much time coming on, but and I apologize, because Robert E. Lee needs to be talked about. And I say the Kennedy twins have put something else. Please read that.
Duty is the most sublime word in the English language. Do your duty in all things. You cannot do more once you never wish to do less. Ari Lee let us know about our duty, and our duty is now. Quick, just a couple of things about the monument. If you've never seen it, this is the monument itself. Moose, pull that comment down if you don't mind, so everybody can see it. It's a circular monument with I think that's I can't remember which Greco-Roman god that is at the top, but it depicts all walks of life. There's Confederate sailor on there, but when you zoom in on it, you actually see some stuff that's hidden from. You want to talk about reclaiming the narrative? Some stuff that narrative. You can see here in the yellow box that there actually is a African American Confederate soldier depicted on the monument. Again, this is a firsthand source. The sculptor, knowing what
Mm-hmm.
was in the Confederate Army, depicts him in there. Around on the relief, we'll bring a better picture of it up right now. You can see the Confederate officer there hugging his child, and clearly that's one of the the one of the people who were taking care of the kids, and it's an American woman who stayed behind to take care of the kids while he went off to war. And you can see that the white child there is hugging on the mammy figure, for lack of a better term. So it depicts everything about the South, from going to war to coming back, and the struggles and hardships, all portions of Confederate life, American life, war life that happened there. And as Commander in Chief was talking about, this is an actual sketch of the grave area there at Arlington, and that monument sits right there in the center, and then around it are the Confederate graves and stuff like that, and plants. And that was the original first, one of the sketches for it. But we'll dedicate some more time to the history of that monument on a later episode.
Yes.
To get everybody some idea. Charles Ray corrected me, and it's she's a symbol of the South at the top.
Yes. Yes, it was considered a reconciliation monument, bringing the country back together. Well, if there was a monument to bringing the country back together, why remove it?
Yeah. Because we're a conquered people and a second class of citizens in the eyes of the federal government. We have been since 1860. They just wanted us to get back in so that we could advance American imperialism. Again, my opinions, not necessarily those of the SCV.
Well, and that's the thing. We all have an opinion. We all have what we like and what we don't like. The men of the Southland, the ladies of the Southland. When I spoke at Jacksonville last night, I spoke about the women and the necessity of the women. You hear all of the accounts of what the ladies went through at home during this war, the letters that were going back and forth. And some of these men that were fighting in all of these battles, and they get a letter from home, and they had to be thinking about their parents, their wives, and their children, and what they were having to go through, because they were burned out of their homes in a lot of cases. All of their crops were burned. All of their livestock was taken. And it was a period of desolation. And then you had these men out fighting for that. And I have a question. Mm-hmm. And first it's going to start out as a statement, and then it's going to turn into a question. When the war first started, and I'm talking before the firing on Fort Sumter or right after the firing on Fort Sumter, you had all of these men that joined, and if you read their accounts, and I read firsthand accounts, and you had Confederate soldiers that were saying they were going to fight for the right of self-government. They were going to fight for their freedom and the right to be able to live their life the way that they wanted to. And you would hear from the federal soldiers, and they were fighting to protect the Union. So you had the Confederates at the very beginning, before the firing on Fort Sumter and before the invasion, or around the time of firing on Fort Sumter, that you had all of these men that joined because they believed in self-government. They believed in states' rights, and they had the right to defend, that they had the right to defend their freedoms. And then the invasions happened. And you know that we were invaded. When we were invaded, at what point in time does it become treason for a man to stand between an invading army and his home?
Never.
How in the world can that be treason when a man is standing between an invading army and his home? There is nothing treasonous at all about any of those two acts. And you know they love to paint our ancestors right now. I call them our people because I feel like they all are. At what point in time is any of that treasonous? When you are fighting for freedom and the right of self-government, and then you impose yourself between an invading army and your home. At what point in time is that? There were so many men that joined after the firing of Fort Sumter, and Lincoln called for 75,000 troops from each state to suppress the rebellion.
Well, I mean, there was a movie that came out in 1972. It's a musical based on the signing of the Declaration of Independence called 1776, and they take a little bit of liberty with some of the quotes in there. But one of those is Ben Franklin talking about it's only in the third person when something becomes illegal. When it's our revolution, when it's our ancestors standing up, but when the federal government and those neo-Marxist Yankees come in and say their rebellion, that's only in the third person does something become bad. And that's the way they've been playing it since Lincoln's inauguration all the way to modern day. Going back to the first person accounts, if you really want to defeat the narrative that they're speaking, look at Frederick Douglass, who was the primary abolitionist of his era, who after First Manassas said that there are black soldiers in the Confederate Army, not just serving as cooks and body servants, but with muskets on their arms and bullets in their pockets. That defeats the entire Yankee narrative about anything dealing with what they say that our ancestors really fought for. I'm hanging out with the Kennedys too much.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the phrase, and I'm sure that you have heard the phrase, but have you heard the phrase that nothing is ended until it is forgotten?
Yeah.
Okay, what if you eradicate all of the people who believe in what you just said?
Oh, well,
it is ended at that time. Nothing is ended until it is forgotten. See, and that is the reason why I tell people to talk about their ancestors and to mention their names. Because, and I've talked about this a few times lately. There's this saying that floats around that I do not believe in, and this phrase is, well, you only have one life to live. You only have one life. You do. You only have one life, and you live it every day. But there are 3 deaths, and the first death is when you cease to interact with anybody. The second death is when you go in the ground and nobody sees you anymore. And the third death is when nobody says your name anymore. They're looking for the third death, because this is where all of this is headed, is a complete eradication of anybody who believes in what this country was founded on. Because they were right in 1776, just like they were right in 1860, period.
Mm-hmm.
It was all fought for the same thing. It was all fought for the same thing. You had these men in 1776 that felt like they had the right to self-government. They felt like they had the right to live their life the way that they wanted without a totalitarian government on top of them, telling them how to take every step, how much water they can save, what stoves they can cook on. Okay, you go from that to, at what point in time did all of these men join and start fighting in this revolution in 1776? Because the British government was invading them. And it was the same thing in 1776 as it was in 1860. Let's look at it from the soldier's perspective at that time. Let's look at the people that were on the ground, the boots on the ground. Your mind is going to change if you're living in south of Nashville, Tennessee. You're living in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and the federal army has just crossed the Cumberland and is headed toward Nashville. What are you going to do? What's the difference? At what point in time is any of this traitors? At what point in time are any of these men traitors? If they were traitors in 1860, they were traitors in 1776. The British saw them as traitors in 1776. We won the war. We gained our independence. You know how that was written. In 1865, the Army surrendered. We were never defeated. The Army just surrendered. But they got the narrative, and they have turned us into traitors ever since. Why do you think the charge reads the way that it does? To you, sons of Confederate veterans, we will commit the vindication of the cause for which we fought. The very first sentence tells you that they knew how this was going to be perceived. I see somebody else has said something.
Yeah, so I posted the Jefferson Davis's quote, the principle for which we contended is bound to reassert itself, though it may be another time and another form. And Dr. Mitchum, good evening, Dr. Mitchum, replied with the comment, truth crushed to earth is still truth, and like a seed will rise again.
Yeah. And Jeff Davis said it, and I thank Dr. Mitchum for bringing that to everybody's view. Thank you for coming on and saying something, Dr. Mitchum. I appreciate that.
Well, he's been commenting all night. We just haven't had a chance to recognize him.
Okay. I haven't seen any of the chats. Working off my phone, I'm not able to see any of it.
Yeah.
But I just, and I didn't come on here to interrupt Robert E. Lee. I have no right to interrupt anything going on with Robert E. Lee. But I felt like the organization needed to know the things that were ahead of us right now. One of the things we said when we were going to do with SCV chat was we were going to keep people in the loop. We were going to get the information out there to everybody as quick as possible. And that is what we're doing with this now. I did not mean to interrupt Robert E. Lee. We could spend a month talking about Robert E. Lee. But
we could spend a whole year talking about him.
Yes. I will go ahead and finish this with, and then if you need me to get off so you can talk about Robert E. Lee, you can. The thing about that strikes me the most about Robert E. Lee and the humbleness of the man. We all know he was a good Christian man. That is no doubt. Him and Stonewall Jackson as well. Stonewall Jackson very much so. But since we're talking about Robert E. Lee right now, when they were at Appomattox and he come walking out and all of his men were there, and there was this great big loud cheer of when he walked out, and then everybody realized why they were there, and he got on Traveler, and he was riding, and he had his hat off by his men, and you had all of these men, some of them that had served with him the entire time. They had been with him since day one, and some of them that had only been there since they had come into the Army. It could have just been a day, it could have been a week, it could have been a month, could have been a year. But they were blessed in the fact that they got to serve with a man as honorable as Robert E. Lee and serve with him. I don't think everybody served under him, as we know. But the way Robert E. Lee treated his men, you didn't serve under him, you served with him. And these men served with Robert E. Lee. And as him and Traveler were leaving and they were walking amongst the crowd of men, you had all of these men that were reaching out, veterans of this war, hats off, crying, weeping, because they knew. They knew more than we could ever know. They were there at the time. They had experienced all of it. We have absolutely no idea of the emotions that were going through these men. We have no idea the trials, troubles that they had been through for all this. We don't know the sacrifices. We can't even begin to guess. We can read all of it, but you don't know what's going on inside the human being. And I see 40-year-old men that were weeping because at the end of this. And Robert E. Lee reached a point where he turned around and he said something to the effect, I don't have any words, my heart is full, and I can't say anything more. And then he went and he left and was headed to his brother's house, and he had supper in the house with his brother. And when it come time to go to bed, his brother, of course, offered him a bed, and Robert E. Lee wouldn't sleep in the house. Robert E. Lee went and pitched his tent by the side of the road. and he spent the night in his tent. I think that says a whole lot about the suffering of what the man was going through, the internal suffering of what he had been through. I can't imagine what it was like to be Robert E. Lee. I can't even begin to fathom it. To, men that follow him the way that they followed him, that he was disappointed in himself. He was never disappointed in his men. They fought and gave every ounce that they could give. And here they are weeping for him. And he had to be weeping himself. If he wasn't crying externally, he was weeping internally. His guts were being pulled out by this. And that goes to show just how much the man was suffering, in the fact that he could not sleep in his own brother's house. He had to sleep in his tent by the side of the road. And that tells you what kind of man Robert E. Lee was, that he expected everything out of himself. And he felt like he had given his full measure. And what suffering did he go through internally as the way it ended up, that he couldn't even sleep in his own brother's house. And, that just tells you the full measure of the man. I can't imagine what it was like to be him. I can't imagine what any of those men were like. When we start this stuff, I'm more Confederate than you. Boys,
Wow.
You're never going to be any more Confederate than any of them whatsoever. You're not more Confederate than anybody else in this organization. We're all brothers. We're all a brotherhood, and we're going to have to stand together like those men did, and we're going to have to fight like those men did, and give every ounce.
Well, I mean, it's
And when
just
I
like,
think about Robert E. Lee, that's what I think about.
yeah. Well, it's just like, after Pickett's charge, when the men who, that he sent up there on the attack, that he, rode up there, and the veterans coming back after almost making that high mark of the Confederacy and everything like that. He rides up to him and he says, what does he say to him? It's all my fault.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
what other leader in military history? I mean, Grant, they say he cried twice during the war, once at Shiloh and the other time looking at the casualty list at Cold Harbor. But, you never hear about Grant riding up to his men, it's all my fault. You never hear about, other leaders, taking the blame. He was really, he was taking the blame and almost, or offered his resignation to the Confederate Congress because of he felt like Gettysburg was all of his fault, and he was being a man and taking responsibility for his actions.
Yes. He was the epitome of a true Southern gentleman. He was the epitome. Whereas Grant, the man that he gave that he surrendered his army to, the only time I figured General Grant cried was when Jack Daniels ran out of whiskey.
True.
We do know that Jack Daniels was the first one to ever get a liquor license after the war. And that is because he gave Grant booze.
Yeah.
So, just saying. And
That's why I
bring
drink George Dickel.
and that is, I was trying to bring a little levity to that because it got kind of heavy, and I brought some of the heaviness on because I know that the fight that we have got ahead of us, and all that I ask is that us be Southern gentlemen, and we work together to the best of our ability to have a victory, and we need to stand together with our other brothers, and we need to stand with our other sisters, and we need the wives, we need the sweethearts, we need the darlings, we need the wives, we need everybody out there. We need all of us working together on this, because it is going to take the full measure of everybody that has Southern blood running through their soul, running through their veins, to be able to make this fight.
The entire Confederate family needs to stand up now and say enough is enough. There's an estimated 8 million people in this world that are descended from Confederate soldiers. And when that was done, 10 years ago, we're not going
22
to
million is the number I'm hearing now. 22 million.
22 million. If a tenth of them would stand up with us, or we would be able to change the world back for what we want, reinstill those American values that our ancestors fought for, and say enough is enough. We're not going to be subjugated anymore, and leave our heritage alone. That's what Jeff Davis asked for. He said, all we ask is to be left alone. Just leave us alone. Just leave us alone.
And when we talk about our Southern heritage and our Southern culture, we need to realize that it is a deeply religious culture.
Amen.
The two men that we're honoring so much this month were deeply religious men. They believed in God. They believed in a higher power. They believed in that. And they lived their life according to that. I have yet to find any fault in anything of what our Confederate ancestors did. They stood up because they believed in the right of self-government, and they believed in the right of states' rights. And when we were invaded, they stood between, our ancestors stood between an invading army and their homes. And they did so believing in God, believing in a higher power, believing that they were right in what they were doing, believing that, Stonewall Jackson never feared death because he knew that his place was there with God. His place was in heaven. As he said, go across the river and rest in the shade of the trees. There's so much that we have to be thankful for. And one of the things I am most thankful for is I have a Confederate bloodline.
Amen.
Amen.
I'm proud of the fact that I had ancestors that served in the Confederate Army. And he was a religious man. My wife had people serve. He was a preacher. And you start studying these men and what they went through. I'm not talking about things that were some of this written at the war, after the war, right after the war, even up to 20 and 30 years later. If you read about it, read about, W.W. Bennett, read his book about the religious revival that went through the Confederate Army at that time, where they were passing around 10,000 Bibles, 20,000 New Testaments. And there was this deep religious and revival that was going on. Those were our ancestors. There's really nothing more to add than that. Are you going to carry forth the charge? When I come into this organization, I was sworn in. And when we have our camp meetings, we say the charge. And I believe in the charge. Are we going to do? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, while we're piggybacking onto the charge, the charge, there's our portion of the charge, to you sons of Confederate veterans. But there's a portion for everybody in there.
Yes.
There is a portion for, to the daughters, to the Women's Benevolent Society, to the mothers, to, all Southerners everywhere, all Americans everywhere.
Yes.
I'm pulling it up right now so we could see that, so I could find it really quickly. If
you read his speech, he's talking to everybody. Now, I realize we're on SCV chat and we're talking to the Sons of Confederate Veterans, so I mentioned our part of it. However, there isn't a but. When you say but, you negate everything that you said before that. So I'm saying, however. We're talking to the sons. However, in Stephen D. Lee's charge, he talked to everybody. And, you don't have to be a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans to be able to contribute to any of this.
If you have the bloodline, we want you.
If you have the bloodline and you wish to be a member, we need to remember something here. We're all volunteers. Everybody in this organization is a volunteer. I volunteer. Y'all volunteer. This is a volunteer organization. We agreed to join this organization, this historical organization, this preservation association. But it is a volunteer organization. You volunteered to join, just like your ancestor volunteered to join. There wasn't a whole lot of conscripts back in the day. There were a lot of men that stepped up and joined right off the bat. So are you going to follow in their footsteps? If you can join, I encourage you to join. If you're female and you want to join the United Daughters of the Confederacy, find a local UDC chapter, work with them, and join. Because we need the daughters. We need everybody on any of this. We need everybody that is out there that believes in American history, because American history is Southern history. You do realize that every important document that founded this country was written by a Southerner.
And if you don't have the DNA, you can join the Friends of the SCV, as Lieutenant Commander in Chief
Yes.
is saying in the chat. But I found the portion that I was bringing up, and General Lee said, "To all men everywhere who prize in man the manliest of deeds, who love in man the love of country, who praise fidelity and courage, who honor self-sacrifice and noble devotion, will be given an incomparable inheritance to the memory of our Prince of Men, the Confederate soldier."
Yeah.
I think that just summarized what you were saying.
I couldn't have said it any better. I went looking for all of these things to say, when I started talking, and I come across a book by Randolph H. McKim, and Randolph H. McKim had this to say: "I can only repeat what I have said elsewhere on a previous occasion. If ever men were heroes, these were the men. What hardships did they not uncomplainingly endure on the march and in the bivouac and in the trenches? Who can forget their weird marches with Jackson in the Valley campaign? Rusted and ragged were their uniforms, but rusty and ragged were their uniforms, but bright and shiny were their muskets and their bayonets, and they moved like the very whirlwind of war. If it can be said of men, dulce et decorum post materia more, which is Latin for it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country, these were the men." They knew little of the warring theories or constitutional interpretation, but what they did know were armed legions were marching upon their homes, and it was their duty to push them back at all cost. Randolph H. McKim was a preacher.
Okay.
He was started out as a preacher. The war started. He was born in 1842. When the war come, he was 18 years old. He was in school to study to become a minister. The war started. He picked up the musket. He fought for 2 years. He felt the pull of the Bible, felt the pull of the gospel, felt like all of the men needed salvation out there on the battlefield. And at a time when they needed every man possible, they allowed him to lay down his musket. He was just 20, 21 years old. He was an able-bodied young man. He asked if he could lay down his musket and pick up the Bible. His superior officers said that he could. At a time when they needed every possible man and musket in the line, they let a man lay down his musket and pick up his Bible to administer to the men during the time of the war. He spent the last 2 years of the war in the field with the men, administering to them, preaching every night, passing out Bibles, talking to them daily. And then when they went into war, he was there with them. And then 48 years after the war, he said that, "I believe Randolph H. McKim, period." I got on a soapbox there, and everybody got quiet.
Well, I was waiting for you to
were
finish,
letting
because
you.
I'm going to read a quote that was said before our nation was even founded. "Be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and others have greatness thrust upon them. And that if that does not fit our Confederate ancestors from Robert E. Lee all the way down to Sam Watkins, a high private in Company H, it fits every single one of them." William Shakespeare.
Well, what did he say? What you just quoted Robert E. Lee in doing his duty. In all things you cannot do more, you should not wish to do less.
Okay, you won the quote off.
Well, I don't know that I won the quote off. I didn't know we were going quotes, but
Well, we just kept passing them back for 20 minutes there, Jason.
we have a duty. Well, I feel like I have a duty. I'm not thrusting my sense of duty onto anybody else. I feel like I have a duty to do everything that I can do. Because if you read our history and you study our history and you study what our men went through from 1776 until now,
Well,
we have
I mean,
a duty. You have a duty to your mothers, your fathers, your grandmothers, your grandfathers, because if they had not lived through all of that, you would not be here. The fact that you are here means that your family is a survivor.
And the other thing is, because they lived through all of that, it's our duty, like you're saying, it's our duty to honor them. You know, we may have, you know, well, you and I and Moose, we're all part of the Life Members Club now, but you know, even though we're not part of the Life Members Club, you know, we would have dues that we had to pay. But the fact that we have those dues to pay it's irrelevant about that, because our actual dues, my dues were paid on April morning in Shiloh, Tennessee, when my ancestor charged across the field, caught a bullet here, lost his eye, and then in late 1863, re-enlisted in the Confederate service. You know,
Joining the Sons of Confederate Veterans is not a right; it is a privilege.
Amen. That's what I was getting at.
It is a privilege to join this organization. At the very least, it is a birthright that was given to you by your Confederate ancestors' duty. Nobody, just not anybody can up and join this organization. There's guidelines for joining this organization. You have to be the descendant of a Confederate soldier that served honorably. Period. And the fact that you were able to join this, it was a privilege to be able to join. It is not a right that is given to anybody. It is a birthright that was earned and given to you by your Confederate ancestor.
Amen.
It's something that we could not earn.
No,
you know, it's something that you know, our works could never do. You may be picking up where I'm kind of alluding to. You know, our works can never imagine what sacrifices they went through. It's not up to us. You know, it's their struggles, their cold winters, that when disease went through the camps and they saw their friends and loved ones die, during the battlefields when they saw their friends and loved ones die, when they came home, you know, after you know, being surrendered, whether it was in Appomattox, Virginia, or Gainesville, Alabama, or over in Texas, it was what they did that allows us to be in this organization. And what they did, circling all back, is the reason why we have to stand up, why we have to do something with, you know, the Arlington Monument, the monument in your community, recruiting for your camp, retaining your membership in your camp, doing anything and everything that this organization stands for to grow this organization. And to, at the end of the day, when we cross that river and we meet our ancestors, first we need to hear from the good Lord, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And then when we meet our ancestors, they say, "Thank you for remembering me and standing up for me and my legacy and what I did between 1861 and 1865. You were a worthy descendant of mine, and what you did for my cause and for my life was worth it. Thank you."
Amen.
And amen. And I'm going to piggyback off that, because I said this last night to 1209. And down there with them, I said, I have no idea what heaven looks like. I have no idea. I have no idea what heaven looks like. But what I think, what is in my imagination, the people that I have seen on this earth, I'm going to recognize. When I hear those words, "Well done, my good and faithful servant," and I go in through the pearly gates and I enter into heaven, the people that I see, like my dad, who I just lost, I will know. I have never even seen a picture of my Confederate veteran. that I went into the organization under. Jason Wilkes Bowshears, 48 Tennessee Infantry Company B. I'm named after him. I went into the organization under him. I don't even have a picture of him. But I think that I will know him in an instant. I think I will. And I think he will know me in an instant. And I want him to know that I want him to be as proud of me as I am of him.
Well, that's
I have done that, I have done my duty.
yeah,
Period.
that's the thing. You may not recognize him, but he'll recognize you for your good or for your evil deeds.
Yeah. And I hope that he recognizes me in an instant. I hope I recognize him in an instant. I have questions, and maybe I can get to ask these questions. And well, heaven lasts forever and eternity is forever. So I think I will have time, but I want him to be as proud of me as I am of him. I want him to know that I have done the best that I can do. And if he knows that I've done the best that I can do, then I done my duty. Because he is more Confederate than I will ever dream and ever hope to be part of. Period.
What you got to say, Moose?
Y'all stole all the good stuff. I'm just gonna let y'all keep talking. Y'all have already said everything I wanted to say like an hour ago. I'll keep going after it.
Well, I did not mean to take an hour and 41 minutes. You realize I said I've been an hour and nearly 4 minutes, and we've gone another, 35, 36 minutes past that. And I want to thank y'all for allowing me to come on. Huh?
Said it's been a great hour and 40 minutes. Don't sell yourself short. This has been an awesome episode that needed to happen.
Well, but I know we need to talk about Robert E. Lee, because every moment that you spend talking about Robert E. Lee, you're going to be talking about all of the men that served underneath him, the unknown privates that followed him everywhere he went, even though in some cases it led them down a bad path to an early grave. They followed him. And those that did not end up in the grave were allowed to see him and Traveler at that last moment. What a joy it would have been, even though it was heart-wrenching to be there at that, but to see Robert E. Lee on Traveler and to be able to touch them at that moment. I don't have words for that.
Yeah, going to talk about Robert E. Lee. You mentioned a story about after the war. After he made it back to Richmond after Appomattox, his headquarters was in a captured U.S. Or captured federal, federal ambulance, and he was making his way back to Richmond. Richmond had been burned, and the house right beside Robert E. the house that Mary Lee was staying in, because those murdering, thieving, robbing, raping, pillaging. I think I quoted Herman correctly on that.
Pretty close.
No good for nothing, dirty, rotten, sinning Yankees. When they came into Richmond and did everything, it sacked Richmond and everything that went with it. Sorry, I digress. They kicked the Lee family out of Arlington House, which was the home of Mary Lee and the Custis family, who were descended directly from George Washington, and all the Washington stuff was stolen, and all the payback that the Federals did there. She moved into a rented house in Richmond, and Lee gets to that house, and the fires from Richmond when the city was sacked and abandoned. The house next door to it was the last house that caught fire. Their house almost burnt down. And it's like a day or two after Matthew Brady comes and takes the infamous picture on the back porch, not infamous, but the famous back porch picture with Lee and Walter Taylor and Lee by himself and everything like that. He's still in his Appomattox uniform. He doesn't have a stitch of civilian clothing to wear. a private from Hood's Texas Brigade, or what was Hood's Texas Brigade, a guy from Texas who had traveled all those many miles to be, to fight in the Army of Northern Virginia, who'd been on these campaigns, countless, from Fredericksburg to Gettysburg to the Wilderness and everywhere in between. That part of Hood's group had been, or he was in Longstreet's Corps. They had fought in Chickamauga and everywhere in between. This grizzled veteran, probably dressed in rags, reeking the high heavens, hadn't eaten until a couple of days ago because the Federal Army was able to give Robert E. Lee's army some supplies. Stops at the house where General Lee is at, and he knocks on the door, and Lee's son answers it and says, "Can I help you?" And he says, "Well, I'm about to go home. I'm about to go back to Texas. I wanted to see General Lee one last time." And he says, "Well, let me go see if he's available for callers and everything." The Victorian era genteel nature that they had during that time.
Yep.
The veteran waits, and he goes. General Lee's son goes upstairs and sees if General Lee would come down. General Lee had just surrendered his army. He had just gotten home to his invalid wife. He's got former Yankee officers that he'd served with coming and calling for him. Richmond, a town that he was familiar with, had been ruined. He'd seen the ruin of the Southland and everything like that. The man, no doubtedly, has the weight of the world on his shoulders because he doesn't know what's about to happen to him. He doesn't know what the vengeful federal government's going to do. I imagine just how much weight is on him. He still takes the time to go downstairs and meet with that veteran. And they say that they did not express, Lee reached out and shook his hand, and the private was so overwhelmed with emotion that he just burst into tears, and General Lee hugged him. That's the type of man that he was. That a private would Shelby Foote says it in the Ken Burns documentary, that there was a story of another private who had done some type of infraction and came up to General Lee's headquarters, and he was visibly shaken and everything like that, afraid. And he says, "Son, there's no need to be afraid. You'll have justice here." And the private said, "Yeah, General, that's what I'm afraid of." But the fact that he loved his men that much and he would take his time out and do that stuff with them is just a remarkable, something you don't see anything. And my last story about General Lee that I tell every time I give a Lee Jackson speech is the story of the Battle of Mine Run in late of 1863, post Gettysburg, last battle really that the Army of Northern Virginia fought in that year. Lee and his staff are riding along the lines and while inspecting the troops and everything like that, making sure that their defenses are sound. The Army was just now, recuperating somewhat from Gettysburg. Longstreet Corps had just returned to the Army, and it's the last battle before they go into winter quarters. And while they're riding along the line, General Lee sees a group of soldiers praying over this may be the last chance they get to pray and everything like that. General Lee's staff continues on, and they look around. They get, about 100 yards down the line. They look around, and they've lost General Lee. They've lost this chieftain of the Confederate Army, the guy who they're supposed to be looking after. His escorts and his staff begin turning around and retracing their steps, and they finally come over to this group of soldiers that are kneeling and praying, and they look down, and who is amongst those men? Robert
Lee.
Taking the time to pray with his men. That's just his leadership that you don't see anywhere else hardly, and stuff that's happened since then. His care for his men, not only their physical care, but their emotional and spiritual well-being as well. And can you imagine being one of those soldiers praying before going into battle and then saying amen, and you open your eyes and you look up and there's Robert E. Lee praying with you? I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that.
Yeah, you talk about stuff like that, and there's not words for anything like that. There's not. But that's the men they were. And what would happen if we all strive to be such men?
Mm-hmm.
Much better world, I can tell you that much at least.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad that we got to say a few words about Lee. And I want to thank y'all for allowing me to come on and update everybody on what is going on with SCV National. That was the intent of SCV Chat when we started it 3 years ago.
Four. Season 4, baby.
Season 4.
We're in season 4.
No, season 1 and 6 was ended shortly, and we skipped to season 2 when we got on Facebook.
Put that paw down, Moose.
Okay. Well, I don't know what season we're in. Okay. I just know it started when I was lieutenant commander. And I can say that this has been a great deal. I want to thank y'all for allowing me to come on. I know that we're at an hour and 50 minutes, and I don't know how long we're allowed on StreamYard.
As long as we want.
Okay. I know sometimes we have to cut stuff off after about an hour, and we've gone a little past that. So I just want to say that it's really been an honor coming on and talking with y'all. Thank y'all for allowing me to come on and say a few words.
Our honor, Commander.
Yes, sir.
Guys, ladies, it's time. We've got a fight ahead of us. If you followed this whole thing, if you've just jumped on in the last little bit, the first probably hour was dealing with a whole lot of SCV business. And if you want to come back and rewatch this to see everything that we talked about, that has led us up to where we are now. Talking about this great man, Robert E. Lee. Man, what would I be if I could strive to be that man? We got a big fight ahead of us. National entering into this lawsuit to defend Arlington and to fight against the removal of the Reconciliation Monument. If you want to contribute, we've been through all of that. If people want to go back and watch it, they can see it.
There's a link.
It is an honor.
Link scrolling across the bottom of the page if you want to go and contribute.
Yes.
In the chat.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we had a few moments to talk about Robert E. Lee. Like you said, we could spend a week, a month, a year talking about the benefits of the man and what a great Southern gentleman he was. And still, I think about him coming out of that, and I'm just being on Traveler, and because I'm partial to animals myself, and to somebody like Traveler. And Traveler has earned his own distinction as being one of the two mounts of Robert E. Lee. I think the other one was Lucy.
Lucy Long.
Who?
Lucy Long.
Lucy Long. You had Lucy and you had Traveler, and they carried great men to do great things. And when I start thinking about this stuff, I start getting kind of emotional and start getting real humbled by it. And the words kind of leave me. And this view has changed because, well, my cell phone is now down to 6%, even though I have it on charge. So that tells you that I have been using it,
Well,
but I just want to thank y'all for allowing me to come on and say a few words.
thank you.
Come on, people of the Southland, you're being called upon.
Amen.
People of the Southland, you're being called upon. You know what we need to do. It's within your heart. And you know that we need to fight this battle. And right now, as you heard the Kennedys say earlier, this is going to be fought with dollars and not bullets. So we're going to have to enter into this lawsuit and fight this battle the way things are being fought now. And I want to thank y'all for allowing me to be able to come on and say that.
Well, thank you for coming on. You have a invitation at any time. You're starting to get a little choppy, so I'm going to go ahead and remove you off the back as we close out. Appreciate it, Commander.
Thank you, Commander.
We will definitely be in contact, and anytime you need to come on, just let us know. So
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
it, Chabo. Holler at you later. Guys, we've got a lot of important work coming up in our future. You've heard about it tonight. For those that are still watching, U32, we greatly appreciate it. Really quickly, tonight's episode was brought to us by Kennedy and Kennedy. They have their new book out, Jefferson Davis, The High Road to Emancipation and Constitutional Government. Guys, I have not had a chance to read this book yet. I have just gotten a copy this past weekend. I'm going to try to start reading it, relatively soon and getting through it so we can do a good book review. If you don't know who the Kennedy twins are, y'all need to get out from up under a rock. These guys have been in the struggle for all my life. They are two of the smartest constitutional theorists, great writers, everything like that. They will be on Thursday on a look around the Confederation. At least one of them will be.
Yes.
Talking about what they're doing with the Make Dixie Great Again campaign that's still going on. What time is that, Moose?
Oh, we'll be live Thursday at 7 p.m. Confederate Standard Time, same Confederate channel. Again,
go ahead, Moose.
We will be, again, the Confederate Legion Make Dixie Great Again update is planned for Thursday.
Right. Remember also that we are for this first half of this season, we are in a little bit of a theme for our history episodes. First Monday of the month is something dealing with the American Revolution and the Southern impact to the American Revolution, as well as the Southern influence to the American Revolution and Southerners involved in the American Revolution. Go back and watch last week's episode on John Paul Jones. It was a great episode. Next month, we've got author and historian Michael C. Hardy, who's going to talk with us about the Battle of Kings Mountain. Guys, remember that our ancestors were right in 1861 because America was right in 1776. The only way for us to really take back the narrative is take back all of Southern history. We've started a good position on that with the first Thanksgiving, and we want to keep it on. One thing we've talked about a lot tonight is about growing our organization. How can we get people to be proud and fired up for their ancestors if they're not even proud to be from the South? So we're trying to do that. Make sure you go on scv.org/PayPal-donations. Make your donations to whatever fund you like. We've got the scholarship fund, the SCV relief fund, as we've talked about a lot tonight, the museum fund, as well as the Forest Plaza fund. And finally, the Heritage Defense Fund. Specifically, that one is named Heritage Operations, in parentheses, Defense Fund. That one is the one that is, it will go towards this lawsuit. Guys, we can only do it if we all go in together. Remember our spinoff shows, the Alamo City Guards chat with Christian Lee, look around Southwest Florida, look around the Confederation, David Pope's Friends of Douglas Southall Freeman group. Everybody, make sure you get that. Get a copy of this book. We'll be on next week. I won't be on personally, I don't think, but Moose will be on with Carl Jones and his guest, who will be speaking about Thomas Paine. And going into not trying to give up too much information there, but leaking a little bit. Remember to keep your classified documents in a safe place. And until next week, Kumar in the elevator and rare frop.
Before we rare frop it,
I've already rare fropped it.
No. Before. Are we still doing tomorrow?
No,
we're not doing tomorrow anymore.
No, we're not doing tomorrow anymore.
All right. Well, we're not doing it tomorrow. We will figure out at some point to do
talk more about Robert E. Lee at some point in the future.
Yes.
Actually, I think we have an episode scheduled within our 1776 theme that is Robert E. Lee and the influences of the American Revolution on his life.
Hey.
So we may just push it back to that.
That sounds good. Make sure to share this episode out and make sure to tune in Thursday for Look Around the Confederation. Please start sending your news in at scvyouthOutreach@gmail.com. We will try to feature you on this upcoming episode and, of course, the others to come.
Thank you for ruining my hidden joke a second ago.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, you're good at that.
I really am. It's a master stroke. You're welcome.
Yep. All right. Again, we got a lot of stuff coming up. Great year planned ahead. Get active in your communities. Make sure you hide your stuff. Praise the Lord. Pass the ammunition. Faversham. Red Frop. No Fumar.
Rare Frog.